Hey, you might remember this when I asked my followers on Instagram for illustration prompts. I picked one out of the top 3 and drew it. Well, what about the other 2? I had already drawn up some thumbnail ideas, and after completing the half man, half statue print, the aim was to carry on with the others in my own time. But as I finally got round to starting with one of them, I thought 2 things. 1, I wanted to use other colours and get suggestions on a main colour to use that wasn't blue, pink or purple that have recently been my clear favourites. And as you can see, there was only one way I was headed without an intervention. The second thing was, I make videos. Why am I not making a video out of this too? Silly? So, let's finish this. The 2 remaining prompts that weren't picked were Atisburfs and JPyombinos. Atisburfs was a person who was too big for the house they were in, and JPyombinos was a garden. So let's start with Atisburfs. She chose the colour orange. So with that in mind, I took what I had and I made some space at the side to play around with colours and finding a palette that would complement the chosen colour. I eventually narrowed it down and then loosely applied the colours to the artwork, putting them where I thought they'd work best. And then I went about tracing over the image and starting again with new line work and just laying things out for the foundation. I weirdly started off just putting all these colours down in the same layer, which isn't something I'd recommend because it means you have to be very precise with where you're putting everything. I did keep all of these colours together and it was a bit tricky during the whole process of illustrating, so I always recommend using as many layers as possible. I did eventually get into the layer game though and slowly built up the elements around, behind, in front and on top of the main house layer. Slowly but surely seeing the image come to life. Working like this really allows the artwork to find its own footing. The background colour kind of just happened and the shapes of the grass or the weeds just kind of happens. It's just that you're letting the pen decide what looks right with what was done previously and it builds itself. I started to see that it kind of looked like it was underwater and I just went with it. It wasn't my intention at all, but it became it eventually, and it's very interesting how that happens. And also with new colours and shades that you introduced, it's all complementing what came before, and it's kind of like there's no way to predict what the outcome is when you're starting out. It only happens and morphs with each step. So it's always exciting not knowing what the final outcome is, and also knowing that each step that you do is morphing it, still never really knowing, and always just letting the artwork itself decide where it wants to go. It's my favourite way to work, and I don't work that way that often because usually you have a brief and you have things that are very specific that you're going to do. So it's very nice to just let the artwork guide you, which is what happened with this. Round 2. JPyombinos' prompt was a garden, so I just wanted to take a look at some reference images before I got started, as I don't draw trees and plants that much, so it's not really second nature, and I wanted to source some visual inspiration for the mind bank, and got some pretty good images. So JPyombinos' colour was red. Let's get into this. I did have that very rough thumbnail that was super loose and wasn't fully formed, but I thought I'd paste it in as a good starting point and went about playing with colours. I experimented a bit, but I realised I just needed to draw up the clear idea first, and then to just apply the possibilities directly on top of that. that doesn't work. This makes it so much more easier to visualize. How about this? Much better. Now, let's take things seriously and apply the colour and shapes more accurately, but still loosely figuring out what goes where. This took a bit of time, but it was quite satisfying to see it build up eventually into a pretty detailed foreground that would hopefully frame the image quite nicely. I kept it dark and almost shaded to give a sense of depth to the image. Again, it's so nice to push myself and try new things with this, from using different colours to different content. I honestly don't think I've drawn plants to this degree before. I can only think of one illustration that was close to this, and that's mad. One illustration of plants? I can't think of something more available and more prominent than plants or nature, so I really need to up my game with that. There's definitely something to be said about caging yourself in by doing the same thing again and again. And a lot of the time you can be unaware of it, how you fall into certain patterns and styles, and although it can be a good thing, nothing frees you up more than going in the opposite direction with it and relinquishing some control and trying out little challenges here and there. It's definitely something I want to do more of on this channel, so if you have any challenge ideas, please let me know in the comments and I may pick one or two of them for future videos. I think with this piece I want to give a sense of magic, and I feel nature really lends itself to that theme. There's something mysterious about plants and nature, almost otherworldly, and it reminds me of Disney films I watched as a kid where leaves would swirl in the wind, and it's so simple yet it felt so magical and so exciting. And here it is, layer by layer. Comment below which is your favourite of the two. And apart from that, thanks so much for watching, like and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you on the next one.